Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Trend Report. I'm glad you're joining me today for another installment of our CEO Chat series. And I'm excited to welcome today a new CEO in our industry, Jonathan Johnson. Hey, Jonathan, how are you today?
I am very well. Happy New Year. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that you're joining me today to share a little bit about who you are and what your company does. So, why don't you kick us off there and give us a brief introduction to Jonathan?
Oh, shit. I don't know how brief it will be. My name's Jonathan Johnson. I'm super excited to be on this show today. And, I am the CEO and founder of Form Furniture. Check us out, form-furniture.com. And we are brand new, which is very exciting and scary thing to say all at the same time, because I don't know, there's lots of brands who have rebranded or retooled or gone to market differently than they have in the past, but maybe you can enlighten me. I just can't think of any brand new brands in the last, I don't know, in our industry. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's a thrilling spot to be. And I've been in our industry in various sides of it for 20 years now. And I'm so excited to be at the helm of something that I'm very, very proud of
Well, I want to
today.
talk about that for a minute. And
Okay.
so, but before we do, I want to go backwards just a little bit. And your foundation in our industry actually comes from the architectural side, right?
That's
So
right.
you go
That's
ahead.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I went to Auburn University in Alabama, which is where I'm from, War Eagle.
Roll Tide.
And yeah,
Sorry, I had to get that plug in there.
yeah, fair enough. Um, I graduated from a 5-year program there, a fabulous architecture program in, however many years ago. I'm not just gonna say. And I have a degree also in interior architecture and environmental design from Auburn. So I was in school for longer than I intended, but at least 6 or 7 years. So, but I had 3 great degrees and lots of fabulous experiences and a great foundation to build what
Mhm.
turned into an incredible path to date. And I can't wait to see where it leads.
So, Jonathan, I'm going to stop just a second. I want you to look at me because you're going to be on YouTube too, and you're not looking at me. So you're looking away. So don't look away because
Yeah.
people on YouTube are going to want to see your face. Okay.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So look at me now. Like, where are you looking now? Are you looking at there? There you go, right there. Now you're
So I
looking
just
at
need
me.
to look straight into the camera.
Yeah, now you're looking at me because before your head was turned to the side and stuff like that. And the people on YouTube are going to say, why can't I see
Yeah.
his face?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair
Fair
enough.
enough. Okay. All right, we'll kick back up. So, Jonathan, after architecture school, you went to work at an A&D firm in Alabama, but I'm really curious, how did you go from being an architect and doing what you did there to into the furniture world? What was the path that led you into our side of the business, if you will?
Need.
Okay, that's not an
I
answer I had expected, by the way, but
Yeah, it was honestly, it was unintended. It was 2008, 9, 10, and I had gotten, I don't know, 6+ years or so practicing architecture, getting to work, building amazing projects with a company at the time called Jutina Acock in Birmingham. You're familiar.
yep.
And you know, I really got to do everything from interior design work to working with dealers and designers on interiors, to clients, on architecture, project management, designing glazing systems, you name it. And you remember those times. I mean, it was apocalyptic,
Yeah.
or it
Hmm.
was to me. I mean, I was so young. I mean, now we've gone through several different versions of that.
Yeah.
But it was fabulous until the day it wasn't. And you could see the writing on the wall.
Hmm.
We went through 4 or 5 rounds of layoffs. Interior designers lost their job, librarians, assistants, you name it. And then finally, we probably went from 100 people to 15,
Sure.
in a year, while other firms were just shutting their doors. And
Hmm.
I spent a year actively looking for work, as my small little bank account dwindled. And I worked in architectural libraries. I mean, it was $10 an hour, just
Sure.
cleaning out their libraries, organizing, products. I went to every firm in Alabama, almost giving presentations about my qualifications or what my prior firm type of work they did. I did everything I could possibly think of. And even working at Pottery Barn, which to this day, I had kind of resigned that might be my whole career for the rest of my life. And I kind of was okay with it
Sure.
after a year, like
Mhm.
5 weeks at Pottery Barn felt like a gift,
Mhm.
because one, it was enjoyable, and two, it's just all I could get.
Mhm.
And I was lucky enough to have so many friends in our industry who are reps, who worked at, as rep groups and manufacturers, and they always had their ear to the ground, for all of us in our industry, but especially me. And that's where you realize how much relationships matter. I mean,
Mhm.
without those relationships, I don't know where I would be. Um, and I was actively interviewing for a few rep roles, and those were hard to come by. And
Mhm.
HumanScale was in need in Alabama and the Florida Panhandle, which was the territory at the time, of a rep. And I was lucky enough to get hired after months and months and months of interviewing. I wasn't really their on paper kind of person. I don't think
Sure.
I'm anyone's on paper kind of person, but at the time, I really were, I remember like making notes in a journal, pages on pages of like interview questions, anything they could possibly ask me.
Mhm.
What would my response be? I worked so hard to get that job.
Sure.
And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, 100%. At the time, it felt maybe like it was temporary, or maybe it was just a paycheck, or I was just so
Mhm.
grateful to have work in our industry. Um, it was hard. My whole identity was wrapped. You talk to any architect,
Yeah.
half of their, if not 90% of their identity is wrapped up in that in a lot of ways.
Well, what I think is really important about what you just said is that one door closes. It was a really difficult time in the world between 2008 and 2010. And what you experienced at Giatina was not different than what was happening around the US, right?
Yeah.
But you had one door close. You got focused on what do I do next? And you
What do you do
took some
next?
interim stuff and said, hey, this is to get by, but you kept pushing and another door opened. And as you
That's
just
right.
said, that door that opened was one of the best things that ever happened to you. So out of something bad comes something really good because that experience has led you to where you sit today.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I couldn't have made it up. And even to this day, I'm lucky enough to be on the board of the advisory board for the School of Interior Design. So I get to work with students often at Auburn. And my number one advice to them is nobody owes you anything. Don't go into the job market thinking you deserve work. You
Yeah.
don't. You have to earn it. You have to prove yourself. You have to go get it. And it's up to you to go do that, and then hopefully your relationships to help you get there,
Mm-hmm.
which is really the most important part of anyone's life or career, I think.
Well, and I've said this many times before on the podcast, and I think my listeners will agree with me, and you've echoed it. The people in our industry are really what make our industry so much fun and such a great thing to be
Yes.
part of is the people.
Yes.
The
Yes.
relationships you make and the connections you build. And to your point, the reps were looking out for you. They're sending
Yeah,
you, hey, here's
always.
this and here's that. And, you know,
Always.
it just goes to, even though we are a small industry, it just goes to show how powerful it is to build authentic connections with people and not just surface level connections.
Well said. I mean, that's authentic relationships with people. That is what matters the most for our whole lives. I mean, it
And,
just is.
and I want to add to that. An authentic relationship does not mean that you have to talk to this person every other day or once a week or even
uh,
once a month. It means you built a
right.
relationship with them and you can go months without talking to them. And what's so great about that is when you pick up the phone after months, maybe even a year, it's literally like you just talked to each other the day before,
Isn't
right?
that the best?
It is
I
the
mean, that's
best.
the best. And I am lucky to have that, but I still think it's rare to have that for real for, I don't know, more than say 5 to 8 people,
Yeah.
10 people. And, you know, sometimes your industry connections, they were even easier than, say, your friends in your life, because you kind of, you're in the same world, you have things to talk about, so you can pick up the phone and you kind of know when you talk to somebody who's a friend in the industry, like, you're there to talk about where each other's at in your life, but especially in your profession, and kind of catch up it that way. And it really, I tell everyone, to your point, it's just the most important thing. It really is. And how you, and who you are as a person in that world is what matters. You know, your reputation, your ethics, your authenticity.
100%. So you spent time at HumanScale, learned a lot about the furniture side that you didn't know when you were working in the A&D firm. So how did you get from HumanScale to founding Forum Furniture? As he
Well,
scratches his head, like this
yeah,
is
well, I was at HumanScale for a decade, and
Oh,
it was fabulous. I mean, I think you've talked to probably a number of people over the years from HumanScale. It looks like I'm sure you've got plenty of people in your network. Fabulous company, fabulous product. You know, they're doing so many great things with product design, but sustainability, and I had fabulous managers and people who really believed in me,
mm-hmm,
and and it was such a professional education and a life education, because I started as a remote sales rep in Alabama,
mm-hmm,
you know, probably grew that 3,000%, you know, in 5 years. I mean, and did it with someone who was my manager at the time, who really drove me to that. She was fabulous. I love her
mm-hmm,
to this day still. And because of that, I was able to move to New York in a role to help manage and run our A&D program. Later to do that in LA as well for HumanScale. And it was fabulous because, you know, not only did I get to work on that side in architecture and interior design, I got
mm-hmm.
to sell and work with dealers and designers, dealers of all types, big,
Yep.
small. You knew the market in
Mm-hmm,
Alabama, you knew the players. And I had such a beautiful network there that I actually miss every day,
mm-hmm,
still to this day. I miss it. There was so much comfort in
mm-hmm,
those relationships. And really then running A&D all over the country with, you know, it wasn't just me running that program, it was two other folks.
mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was wonderful. And then it was just 10 years later, you know, and it was kind of, I could see that I got tired of talking about some of the same things every single day. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as I loved the company and what we did, it was a decade,
Yep.
you know, and talking about ergonomics is wonderful. It was such a great education, sustainability, all those things. And I I got a call. I mean, it's just, again, your network, your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and how you leave those relationships behind. And someone from my network just picked up the phone one day and called me, and that was Blocks, and that's also in Alabama. And
Mm-hmm.
funny enough, Jatina Acock, my original design firm, and Chris Jatina, who took on that firm after his dad retired, because of 2008 to 2010, decided he never wanted to be in that position again.
Sure.
And instead of just saying, like, well, you know what, we're going to pursue healthcare and education and commercial office design, he said, you know what, let's create something that is industry changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I stayed with, I think they let me go at the end because I didn't see it. I literally was like, let me practice architecture, let me practice
Sure.
design. I don't know what you're talking about. They went out and started a prefab modular manufacturing company
Mm-hmm.
that is now huge,
Yeah.
hundreds of millions, 700 people,
Mm-hmm.
more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing space. And that, I couldn't believe I went to go work for them again, and right before COVID. So, I mean, I was
Oh.
kind of doing that from LA, and just the most interesting, challenging, coolest thing. And I was
Mm-hmm.
working on projects with Walmart Health and uh, some temple programs for a major religious organization. And
Mm-hmm.
so challenging and wonderful. And that's really where I started thinking more about this. I've always wanted a furniture company. My thesis in interior design was a piece of commercial office furniture. When I got maybe bored or down in my career of 16 or 17 years, I would start designing furniture on the side and try and launch a little
Sure.
thing, which is near impossible when you're working the hours that I was working, but I tried. And after learning more about supply chain and manufacturing on top of everything else, I just thought, you know, things can be done differently. We were working with some big furniture companies there that were awesome, but struggling to meet our needs. And,
Mm-hmm.
after so many years in this industry, it's all so complicated. It felt so layered and unnecessarily complex and political and sometimes negative, and I just
Mm-hmm.
thought surely there's a better way. And I went out and started this. And I didn't do it in a bubble. I wanted to make sure there was a reasonable business case, that
Sure.
my ideas checked out, whether that was through my dealer friends or my designer friends, my manufacturing acquaintances, and I believe it does. We found it form to be the foundational principles of simplicity, beauty, and accessible pricing.
All
And
right, hang on a second. Let's say that again. The foundation of it was beauty, simplicity, the
accessible pricing.
accessible pricing. Okay. I
Yeah,
love the three.
which is
That's
what
great
I believe is
pillars.
missing. Like as a designer, I mean, I have this beautiful Eames chair. I mean, I
Mhm.
love, and of course, it's like right in the corner in my.
It's
I'm
perfectly
very
okay.
proud of it
Hmm.
because it cost a fortune.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to get a deal through some dealer friends, but you know, design is now more accessible than ever, but so
Mhm.
is garbage,
Yeah.
you
Great
know.
point.
And so for me, it's as a designer, as a consumer, as a specifier, as a manufacturer, I could never get what I wanted for the price I wanted to pay. And even when I sold products through HumanScale, it was always such a fight to
Hmm.
to show them the value in what we were producing,
Yeah.
um, to win that job or to nail that sale. And I just felt like if I start something from scratch, surely without having to pull back layers and layers of decades
Hmm.
of a company, then I could build something more nimble and agile and beautiful and cost effective and get product to the customers when they need it and not screw anybody over, including our dealers who deserve
Hmm.
to make good margins. They're turnkey. You
Yeah.
know, they are kind of the crux of our industry
Hmm.
because they have so much expertise among so many furniture brands and
Yeah.
dealing with so many different elements,
Hmm.
parties, and people to achieve a good project. And so,
So I
yeah,
appreciate that because I'm a huge advocate for the dealer community and the rep community. But there's a couple of things there that I want to break down just for a minute. So you said there had to be a better way. You're going to figure out how to do a better way. And you started Form, and you are only, I mean, you're only a year old when you started it in 2022, right?
yeah, July of 22,
Yeah, just over a year old.
when I say we, I mean I really at the time. I've got a great
Sure.
team now, but it it was zero things. I mean, it was
Hmm.
nothing. It literally didn't. No part of it existed.
But what also is beautiful about this is you can build it the way you want to build it with the products you want to build it with the model you want to build. And you kind of said that a couple of different ways. And one of the things I really appreciate is nimble and agile, cost effective, and honestly, simplifying the process. I believe our
Everything
process is so overly complicated
so
that
complicated.
it has room for modernization. So, selfish plug here. In the February edition of Viewpoint Magazine, the magazine was, which I write for Viewpoint Magazine, I wrote an article about modernization. That was the magazine was all about modernization for the month of February. And I wrote an article about things in our industry that should be modernized, and the sales cycle and the overly complicated process is one of the things that I highlighted that should be modernized. And you're echoing it, and you're building a business around simplicity and design and quality and price.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Yeah. When I
great.
can't wait to read that article, because I think there's a lot of ways to do it. But what I've also found is there's some things, I'd love to change everything tomorrow, but as a new company, you can't.
Mhm.
And what I, even in the beginning, felt like was something that would be simple and elegant as a process or an approach would actually complicate it further for people in our industry because of how used they are to working in certain ways or accustomed to, discounting methodologies or list pricing structures, or, like I didn't want list prices, and then it's like a month later, I'm like, well, that's stupid. I can't seem to like really get out from under a list price with a discount structure, because then I can't get on a state contract and then I'll really fail, So like, I think for me, it's going to be incremental. And, if we can get people to see who we are and what we're trying to do, both designers and dealers and customers and future employees and partners, I think they'll see it, and we can use that momentum to be in shifting and modernizing, to your point. It's time. I can't tell you what it looks like exactly. I don't think any of us can, but it's time, and I think
Totally agree with that. It is time.
it's time. And the other part for me, you know, I'm lucky to have gone through different phases of my own life in 20 years of all these different parts of my career. But I also just wanted a company that was a little more authentic, less layered and political, more transparent and real and lighthearted. And I don't mean in a way like we're going bowling tomorrow night. I think for me, it's let's go do the work and feel really proud of ourselves and do the right things for people and try and create scenarios where nobody feels like they got the short end of the stick in our processes, and then cash our check and go live our lives and be with our families, and then feel really good about waking up and doing it again. And that's going to be hard, as you grow and scale, that's going to be harder and harder. And there's a lot of bloat in our industry and a little bit of nonsense that I'm really, really happy to just identify and hopefully be different than,
so
for better or for worse.
You just, in my opinion, what you just described, Jonathan, was building a true partnership with your dealers, with your reps, with their end users, building a true partnership where everybody wins, because that's the end of the day. That's what it's about. It's not about you beating the dealer up till they make no money or them beating you up till you make no money. It's about working together for the collective good. And that only comes when you build a true, authentic partnership. And that is so important to propel businesses forward.
Yes. And it's, I think what we all want, but we don't know how always, especially if we're a part of a big company or a big organization. And there's always somebody who feels like especially a bid situation. Let's call it a bid situation. There's always someone who feels like they lose. Designers are not excluded from that equation. They get swapped out, or somebody doesn't tell them that they switched something out and they show up on the project and they're disappointed to see there's a totally different chair at the desk, or, whatever. And, same thing with dealers and main lines. I mean, often they'll get the job and then main lines start dictating the terms, and then start creating these direct relationships with the customer and try to manhandle their distribution model and their dealers. And, for me, I've heard even on your prior interviews, like the race to the bottom it's exhausting.
Yes, it is. Say that again, because somebody can always make it cheaper. Somebody can always be
Somebody can
cheaper than you.
always make it cheaper. Somebody can always fly down to the customer and create a different relationship or draw up a different contract or
Mhm.
say something sparkly. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's exhausting, and it's a very competitive landscape, and I get it.
100%.
And even more
So,
now.
so Jonathan, highlight the products. Like you have a very limited product offering at the moment. So what are the basic categories where your products fall into?
Well, right now, what we've launched and introduced that you'll see on the website is a tight collection of go-to foundational workplace products. So sit-stand workstations, worktops, task and conference seating, storage solutions, a simple line of storage solutions, and monitor arms. And we'll be rounding that out over the course of the next 2 years. I mean, there's clearly a gap in what we're seeing now is almost half of the specification, which is going to be multi-purpose, occasional, lounge.
Mhm.
I'm working on designs for that right now. What's really amazing for me is, it's been such a gift because not only am I learning so much, but being able to exercise so much of my mind in our product offering. It's not just the product offering, it's every color, name, it's every logo, photograph,
Mhm.
copy. I wrote all the copy myself with the help of others, of course. I worked with an incredible marketing team who still works with me, Grant Collaborative. And,
They were on the
it,
show, by the way.
yes,
Bill
yes,
was
I
on the
saw
show.
that
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Yeah. Last year.
love Bill. They've been fabulous partners. They really, I can't express how wonderful they've been to work with, because they see me and they hear me and they know what I'm trying to do and they respond accordingly. And I think, the product is beautiful, but what I'm really striving to do is strip away complication. And as an architectural designer, I'm not a licensed architect, but as a designer, I think simplicity in design, and that can be a process, that can be a conversation,
Mhm.
that can be a product design or a website. Simplicity is the hardest thing to achieve as a designer,
Mhm.
and that's why so many people don't do it, don't have it, and can't achieve it, because it's really, really difficult.
Mhm.
um, and that's what I hope you see in our website and with our product offering. And one example of that, two examples, 5 examples, 2 examples of
Okay.
that,
Two
20
examples is enough.
examples.
No. Two.
So 2 examples of that is, if you look at our height adjustable table product, New Heights, our table base, it's a commodity. It just is. It's a commodity product. There's no other way of saying it. Other manufacturers are differentiating themselves by options, alternatives, selections, variations.
Mhm.
Here's 10 different motors with different decibels. Here's different stages, different handsets, like different legs, whatever. 90% of your jobs, 90% of your designers, in my estimation, based on research, knowledge, and tenure, they don't know about that. They don't care about it. And it's a lot of noise.
Mhm.
It's not that I can't do it, because we have amazing vendor relationships and
Sure.
manufacturing capacity, but it may not ever show up on our line. Can I do benching? Can I do, 3 legs and L shapes? Sure.
Mhm.
Can I do different colors? Sure. Will it always show up in my catalog? No.
Mhm.
Um, I sourced everything, designed everything to be the best version of what the majority of people are using, the
Mhm.
most competitive, the
Mhm.
best specifications, the cleanest line. And I did it in a way that said, what does the customer want? What do they want to pay for it? What does the dealer want in their margin? What do I need to be successful? And I'm going to go out and design that,
That's
so that
great.
I start from the end game and work
Mhm.
back. And if I can't find or design something that fits that, then it's not in the line.
So there are a couple of things. I'm on your website, and as you're talking about the table, I'm clicking the table and looking at the table. And I appreciate the fact that you said it's a commodity. Everybody's got one, but you went to the end and looked back. And I think what I appreciate, a couple of things I appreciate. You kept it simple, right? You got one table, comes in a couple of different colors with a couple of different work surface tops, right? And the specification is very clear about what it is. You kept it simple, which I love. I think simplicity that takes away the complexity of our industry and 25 different finishes and blah, blah, blah. We could talk hours about that. But I also think that you're doing something that a lot of people shy away from, which is you're putting your list price on the website. A lot of people shy away from
Really?
saying what the well, it's on the website. It says list price
No,
right
I mean,
there.
like really people are shying away.
Yeah, people, it's I don't know why it is. It's just this whole thing about putting pricing on your website, and but you got it front and center, right? And you're not trying to sell e-commerce. You're not trying to take an order there. I don't see a cart or anything that I can do. But so if you're trying to sell like e-commerce, and yeah, people will put their pricing up there, but you go and look, you'll have a hard time finding pricing if it's there. It's certainly not front and center, and that's transparency. And I think our industry needs more transparency.
Well, and it's simplicity,
Yep.
and it's user experience, which I think, especially on the internet, on web pages, et cetera, manufacturers are behind the curve on that. There's some websites that do it well, but there are many, many, many that do it really poorly. And my goal is to be 2 clicks away from almost every bit of information you can find. And so I didn't even want to launch this company without having every resource available. So
All right, I want
CET,
to pause for a second.
go ahead.
2 clicks away.
We'll
I
see
hope
if that rings
everybody
true. Now I'm like, is it 3 clicks? I don't
no, but I
know.
hope everybody heard that, right? 2 clicks away from all the information that you need, because so many times I talk about this, other podcasters talk about this, people in our industry talk about it. Digital first is really important. We have to meet our specifiers where they are. And that doesn't mean they're in the library looking through catalogs. They're on the internet searching for things. And the more
Yeah.
complex, the more clicks, the more likelihood you have to drive them to somebody else's website because you've made it so complicated for them to find what they want. So, Jonathan, congrats to you. I love that 2 clicks away.
Thank you. Well, and I mean, like you go into any manufacturers, here's a 1,000-page catalog just for like one desking system. I mean, it's outlandish. And to your point, it's funny. I don't know, outside of a materials sample kit, which we just finished, which, by the way, of all the things I've done, that was the most challenging, if you can believe that, shockingly. But, I think it hadn't even occurred to me to put a catalog in a physical library.
Good, good. That's good. I think it's an important thing. It's important. There are other resources out there for you. We've got some of those people coming on the show later this year, but there are certainly other resources out there for you to be discovered and for people to find your binder and to find your literature. And honestly, at the end of the day, the days of printed literature is literally waning. I went in December. I took a couple of weeks traveling and had my, the ThinkSpace lookbook with me, and we're doing design presentations and dealer presentations and all this kind of stuff. And not a single person kept one.
They
They were
don't
like,
want
"Oh,
them.
no, we don't need it. If it's on the website, that's great. If we need it, we'll call you. We'll go to your website first." And I'm just like, wow. I mean, really, because I come from the days of when the reps used to come in every week and update. They go to the library and pull out their binder and put stuff in, and you would steal it the next day and have to call them to bring you more. And so it's great to actually be able to leverage digital tools to help our companies grow, right? Help our businesses grow.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think everybody's probably finding something similar. And
Mhm.
I think space on a shelf is more and more irrelevant,
Mhm.
if not completely irrelevant, outside of finishes. You can't get away from that, as you know. It's
No, yeah, 100%. So you said that
designers,
your
they need that.
box, so you said your box was the most challenging thing that you did. Why was it so challenging? You're smiling. Why was it so challenging?
I
Yeah, I
plug
see it in the background. If you're watching
background.
on YouTube, Jonathan just pointed to it in the background.
There it is.
Yeah.
Um, I think as a small new company, we don't necessarily have the full volume
Mhm,
of, you know, work that
mhm,
somebody who's in this industry wants to do. Now, I have met with some amazing people who do this and only this: cut swatches, sew swatches, mail samples,
mhm.
put boxes together. Um, but you're talking, I don't want to cut a swatch unless I'm cutting 10,000 of them,
Yeah.
and I don't want to put together a box unless I'm putting 1,000 of them together. And, to me, it really was, it's still not done. I mean, I've been working on this box for 8 months, with not just myself, but I got my stash cart that I designed myself, designed, prototyped, shipped, manufactured, selected, sitting in a warehouse in less time than it's taken me to put this sample box together.
Okay.
And luckily, Jamie on my team, who used to work with me at HumanScale, is running with things like that in the background. But my God, talk about feeling archaic. I just, there's some of the things pulling the curtain back has been so thrilling, because it all
No.
seems so easy. And then you hit a wall, like with,
Mhm.
I don't know, a box, and you're
Yeah.
like, what is this?
So,
Why
Jonathan,
is
just
this?
remember something somebody told me many years ago that just stuck in my brain that has never left. Done is better than perfect.
100%.
Done is better than
This box is
perfect.
by no means perfect.
Okay, get her done already, right? Get her done. So, Jonathan, I got a couple more questions for you, then we'll wrap up. You're doing something else that I think is really important and I really appreciate. You've created an advisory board. So
Oh, the
tell
best.
me about that advisory board and kind of how you went about selecting, because you're also very front and forward with it. It's on your website. Meet the people who are advising us. So, and I love that. So tell us about the advisory board.
Oh, thanks for asking. There's such a key piece of me being able to do this. And, for 6 months, 8 months, I was really by myself, plugging away with, of course, feedback from others. And this
Mhm.
board, I don't know, 2 months in, I just was like, I need some people to rely on that I trust, who represent different parts of the industry,
Mhm.
to help me make these decisions, to choose fabrics, to talk about pricing and competitive pricing, to determine what's more comfortable, to advise me on marketing, etc., aesthetic, and what a gift it's been. And so we have 4 advisory board members, many of which I've known for many years, starting with Anna Ruth Gatlin, who is my dear friend from Auburn. She's actually a PhD in interior design and a key part of really my whole life. She's a
Mhm.
dear friend, but she's also an expert.
Sure.
And that makes her incredibly valuable to me because she knows who I am. I used to call on her when I was a new rep and she was a new designer in the facilities department, and has been really instrumental in helping me getting involved with the students at Auburn, which I love doing. And she
Great.
gives me a very practical input, but
Mhm.
also helps me understand where education in interior design is headed, what students are looking for as they get into the market. Um, but also as a friend,
Sure.
she tells me when I'm being crazy, you know,
We
or
all need
like,
that. We all need that friend.
and I think that's been so valuable. And then my friend Tina Brennan, who worked with me here in New York, in the marketing team at HumanScale, running it for some time with Bob King, and she was the first person I called, for marketing. She's at an interior design magazine in Metropolis here in the city,
Mhm.
um, and she's a great friend too. But she has so much expertise. Last night we actually had a board call to launch 2024, and she was so helpful in looking at my socials, which I know nothing about. Luckily I've, you know, with the right phone call, contact, and credit card, you can do anything, and an internet connection. But luckily, I've gotten great feedback
Mhm.
from how we approach that to what kind of design awards we might, want to look into for like the Stash series, for
Sure.
example. Um, Dawn Pappas, who I met here in New York when I was working with the A&D team here, and she is a true, furniture expert.
Mm.
She's been at a number of the big firms in the city, you know, Perkins and Will, Gensler, TPG. She puts packages together all day, every day. She knows everything about furniture you could possibly ever want, every detail. She sends me links of things that she thinks are like the next thing that are getting lots of specs. So she's advising me specifically on fit, fill, color, price, you know, all the things that she sees every day. And it is a rare art and professional tenure to have someone who has that much expertise in furniture specification, and it's younger generations aren't exposed to it. So I hope there's more like her out there who are bringing up people in that art, you know, of working with furniture at that level, because not many people are really doing that. And then Jesse Hill from Hill Design Studio, who used to work at Herman Miller doing industrial design and product design. And he's been fabulous, giving me great critiques on products, giving me industry insight from an industrial design perspective, introducing me to contacts in Michigan, for example, who can help me, you know, navigate those waters. And they've just been, I couldn't have done it without them. Emotionally and, you know, really giving me feedback, advice, input, and support. And they are all beautiful, wonderful people, and they're fun, and they're incredibly talented professionals. And it really is a gift.
So I appreciate that detailed explanation of that. And I think for me, you highlighted, yeah, you're good. You're good. You highlighted something I think it is important, is that we all need help. We all need advice. We all need mentors, if you will. We need people to help us make decisions. And honestly, in today's world, there is no reason that anybody should have to walk a path alone.
Oh
right?
my
There are
gosh.
so many resources out there, including people. And kudos to you, man, for doing it, finding those right people for your organization, and then telling the world that this is what you're doing. I mean, you have industry experts helping guide the direction of your organization, and that's absolutely fantastic.
I didn't want to do anything in a bubble. And, you know, I have strong opinions, and sometimes that's great. And sometimes that, you know, can trip you up a little. But if you have people you trust, it really is key. And I think, you know, everyone, and in some way, I listened to another one of your podcasts, you know, mentorship is so important. And they're mentoring me. You know, and the only way we can be successful to do something different is relying on what people think should be done differently, not just what I think should be done differently. And that idea has changed just in the last year and a half from where I started to where I am. And it will change again and again and again. And one thing that I learned at Blocks, you know, continuous improvement is really important and encouraged, whether that's as an individual growing, you know, I'm a different person today than I was a year ago, even, or a company or a product. It's just always going to be better the next time. And better 100%. And better still. And that's how you build not only a brand or a product line, it's how you build a career and a life, you know.
So Jonathan, I want to just say thank you for being here today and for sharing your incredible story. But I also want to thank you for demonstrating something that I think is very important, and that is courage. You're demonstrating to us the courage that's necessary to build something from the ground up, to lean into your passion, but to also do it differently and realize that just because our industry says this is the way things have to be done or should be done, doesn't actually mean that's the way they should be done. So kudos to you for having the courage to push forward and do and come out with beautiful products that, you know, everybody needs, as you call them, the foundation, right? And you're blazing a new trail, creating a new path. And I'm certainly glad that you're part of our industry and that you're doing that and showing others what's possible. So congrats to you, man. I'm excited for you.
I almost teared up on that one. I tear up once on almost every call, regardless, whether it's positive or just complete frustration. So I'm grateful for that. And I think, you know, some days it doesn't feel like courage. And other days it feels like I might be the bravest person in the world, you know, but it's furniture. And I'm a furniture lover, and I love design, and I love this industry, and I love having conversations with you and people like you in our industry. And when you get down to it, I think everybody feels a similar way. It's just, how do you make change? And what I tell everybody now is, right now I want something that feels really fresh, but I want it to feel familiar. I think anything more than that, to be the brand I want this to be in 10 years, that's where you start, because you can't make change like that. It won't work, and not in this industry, because it's still, at the end of the day, we're manufacturing furniture. It's not like we're a technology company per se. So I think, thank you for saying, I mean, I appreciate it.
Oh, you're
And
welcome.
I appreciate you giving a voice to all these different angles and people in our industry, because it's fascinating to listen to and learn from. And hopefully this will have value for somebody else out there too.
I'm sure that it will. It's been a pleasure, Jonathan, to have you. We're going to drop your website address down into the show notes for everybody to go check out all your products. If you guys are looking for cool new foundational type products, or maybe you're a rep looking for a line to represent, please feel free to reach out to Jonathan. Jonathan, if our community wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Email is absolutely the best way, and then visit our website, as you said. I think, we're starting off small. So if you like the line, you like what you see, you want to specify it, you want to distribute it, just let us know. I'd love to have a conversation.
So all of that will be down in the show notes, including the email. Jonathan, thank you again for being here
Oh
today.
my gosh, thank you.
Really appreciate you. And to all of you joining us today, go out there and make today great. And we'll see you again soon. Take care, everyone.